My name is Ariana Keller. I'm 26 years old, and for 9 years, I quietly financed a family that never saw me as anything more than a convenience. On paper, I was the reliable daughter, the responsible one, the one who had it together. In reality, I was the emergency fund, the backup plan, the silent solution to every problem no one wanted to face. When my father lost his job at the Ford plant in Detroit, I didn't hesitate. I was 22, freshly graduated with a marketing degree and a naive belief that love was proven through sacrifice. I told myself this was temporary, that families pulled together in hard times. Temporary turned into years. I worked 3 jobs, morning shifts at Target, afternoons at a local coffee shop, and freelance design work that stretched past midnight. Every paycheck disappeared the moment it arrived. Rent for our aging ranch house in Dearborn Heights, electric bills that spiked every winter, grocery hauls that fed everyone but me. My younger brother Evan was living his college dream at Michigan State, tuition magically paid on time. My younger sister Lily was consumed with prom dresses and varsity basketball. My mother Margaret retreated into Netflix and comfort food, while my father sank into his recliner with beer cans and resentment. No one ever said thank you. Not when I covered Evan's tuition so he wouldn't get dropped from classes. Not when I bought Lily a homecoming dress so she wouldn't feel embarrassed. Not when I quietly paid the mortgage 3 months in advance after my father's unemployment ran out. I lived in the basement. I drove a 15-year-old Honda with a rattling exhaust. I survived on ramen and gas station coffee. They shopped at Whole Foods. I told myself it was fine, that this was what daughters did, that loyalty meant endurance. By 26, my savings were gone. My social life didn't exist. My dreams felt like artifacts from another lifetime. The breaking point came on a February morning, cold enough that the windows rattled with every gust of wind. I was standing in the kitchen, holding my father's visa statement. Another $3,000 in debt. Shopping charges, subscriptions, expenses no one had asked me about, but that would become mine to fix. "Dad," I said carefully, placing the statement beside his bowl of cereal, "we need to talk about this spending. I can't keep covering these balances on top of everything else." He didn't look embarrassed. He looked irritated. "You act like you're doing us some huge favor," he muttered, "like we should be grateful or something." The words landed like a slap. "I'm not asking for gratitude," I said, my voice shaking despite myself. "I'm asking for help. I've been supporting this family for 9 years. I haven't taken a vacation. I haven't bought myself clothes. I haven't even dated because I'm exhausted and broke." He stood so fast, his chair scraped against the linoleum. "You think you're some kind of saint?" he snarled. "You're just a leech with a martyr complex, living under this roof rent-free, eating our food, and now lecturing us like we owe you something? Leech." I felt my chest cave inward. "Rent-free?" I whispered. "I pay the mortgage. I pay the utilities. I pay the groceries. I pay your car insurance, Mom's medication, Evan's tuition, Lily's expenses." "Get out," he roared, slamming his fist so hard his coffee jumped. "Pack your stuff and get out of my house." My mother appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her robe. She didn't defend me. She didn't speak. She just watched. Lily peeked around the corner, phone in hand, then disappeared. I waited for anyone to say something. No one did. That night, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and a few trash bags. 9 years of sacrifice fit into the trunk of my car. I didn't leave a note. I didn't announce my departure. I vanished. My old college roommate, Rebecca, let me crash in her guest room without questions. She poured me a glass of wine and said, "Stay as long as you need." For the first time in years, I cried. Not from sadness, but relief. The next morning, I did what I should have done long ago. I took control. I removed my name from the mortgage payments, canceled utilities, deleted grocery apps, cut off every financial thread tying me to that house. 3 days later, the calls began. I let them ring. Because for the first time, Choosing myself didn't feel selfish. It felt necessary. The silence was the hardest part. Not the kind of silence that comes with peace, but the kind that follows a lifetime of noise, obligation, and being needed. The first few days at Rebecca's place, my body didn't know how to rest. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. automatically, heart racing, already calculating bills that were no longer mine. I'd reach for my phone, half expecting messages demanding money, fixes, explanations. At first, there were none. Then, 3 days later, my phone exploded. Missed calls, voicemails, text stacked so fast they blurred together. Mom, Dad, Lily, even Evan calling from his dorm room like nothing had happened. I didn't answer a single one. I sat on Rebecca's couch, phone face down, hands shaking. Years of conditioning screamed at me to pick up, to apologize, to fix whatever crisis they were drowning in now, because that was my role. Rebecca found me like that one evening, tears sliding silently down my face while my phone buzzed itself to death. I still feel guilty, I admitted. After everything they said, after kicking me out, I feel like I'm abandoning them. She didn't hesitate. That's not guilt, she said gently. That's trauma. You were trained to believe your worth depended on what you could provide. Her words cracked something open. For 9 years, I hadn't been Ariana. I'd been Ariana the solution, Ariana the safety net, Ariana the invisible insurance policy. The next morning, I doubled down. I called my manager at the marketing firm where I'd recently landed a full-time role and told him I was available for overtime, weekends, extra projects. For the first time, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice, I can actually focus on my career. 2 weeks later, my life changed. I received a job offer from a Chicago-based agency. Better pay, better growth, and nearly 800 miles between me and the house where I'd been called a leech. The old version of me would have hesitated, worried about leaving them in a crisis. The new version accepted immediately. Chicago was loud, expensive, anonymous, and it was exactly what I needed. I rented a small studio in Lincoln Park, nothing fancy, but entirely mine. I decorated it slowly, intentionally, bought groceries for one, slept without the constant knot of financial panic twisting my stomach. At work, people respected me, not for what I sacrificed, but for what I contributed. I made friends, went to happy hours, learned how it felt to laugh without guilt. That's where I met Daniel. He worked in a different department, tall, calm, the kind of man who listened without trying to fix you. Our first date was coffee that turned into dinner, then a long walk along the lake. You don't talk much about your family, he said gently one night. I smiled thinly. That's not an accident. For the first time, I didn't feel broken for saying that. But the past doesn't disappear just because you change zip codes. 6 weeks after I left Detroit, the calls turned into emails, long ones, from my father. He explained they were behind on the mortgage, that the electricity had been shut off twice, that they didn't understand why I was punishing them. One line burned itself into my memory. Family sticks together. We raised you. You owe us. I stared at the screen, hands trembling. I owed them. I'd given them my 20s, my savings, my mental health, my future. I was their daughter, their ATM, and their scapegoat all at once. Then Lily called from an unfamiliar number, probably a friend's phone. Her voice was sharp with accusation. This is ridiculous, Ariana. You're being dramatic. Mom's crying, Dad's stressed, and you're out there in Chicago pretending you're some victim. I closed my eyes. I spent 9 years paying for everyone else's life while mine fell apart, I said quietly. I was never a daughter to you. I was a bank account with feelings. That's not true, she snapped, but her voice wavered. When was the last time you asked how I was doing? I asked. When was the last time any of you celebrated something I accomplished instead of expecting me to pay for yours? Silence. You knew, I continued. You all knew what you were doing. You just didn't care as long as the bills were paid. She hung up. And strangely, I felt relieved. 3 months into my new life, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Just my name. written in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a manila envelope and documents that made my blood run cold. My father's life insurance policy, retirement accounts, my name removed. The change had been made 2 years earlier, long before the kitchen fight, long before I stopped paying their bills. Attached was a sticky note in my father's handwriting. Ariana, unreliable. Cannot be trusted with financial decisions. Something broke inside me, not my heart. Something deeper. The last thread of guilt. The final illusion of belonging. They had planned to exclude me from their future while still expecting me to finance their present. I called a lawyer. He confirmed it was legal. They had every right, he said carefully. Just like you have every right to walk away. 2 weeks later, fate twisted the knife. An old college friend, Amy, texted me. Hey, random question. Didn't your parents live in a duplex on Maple Street? My uncle's company just bought it. They're planning to renovate unless someone wants to take over. Interested? I stared at my phone, heart pounding. The house where I lived in the basement for 9 years. Where I was called a leech. Where I was told to get out. It was for sale. And for the first time in my life, I had the means. I called her immediately. Tell me everything. As the plan took shape, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not revenge, justice. I flew back to Detroit under a different version of myself. Not the exhausted daughter who used to drive home with her stomach knotted, bracing for another bill, another expectation, another unspoken demand. This time, I arrived with a plan. The duplex on Maple Street looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, and the gutters overflowed with neglect. It reminded me of how I'd felt for years. Functional, overlooked, expected to hold everything together without maintenance. The inspection report was brutal. Deferred repairs. Plumbing issues. Electrical updates overdue by decades. But all I could see was potential. The irony was almost poetic. The building I'd paid for, the home I'd been kicked out of, the place where I was called a leech. I made an offer that same day. I didn't buy it in my own name. I created an LLC, Second Chance Properties, and closed quietly on a rainy Tuesday in October. My signature felt steady as I signed the final document. 9 years ago, I would have shaken. This time I didn't. As far as my family knew, their landlord was a faceless company, some distant investor, nothing personal. They continued living downstairs, unaware that every rent check they wrote was now being deposited into an account with my name on it. I didn't raise the rent. Not yet. I spent the next month renovating the upstairs unit. New flooring, fresh paint, updated fixtures. The work was strangely therapeutic. Every repaired beam felt like reclaiming something they'd taken from me. While I worked, I thought about Daniel, about how easily he supported me without asking for pieces of me in return, about how calm my life had become without constant emergencies. And I thought about the will, the note, the decision they'd made years earlier, quietly, deliberately, to erase me. The day I sent the official ownership notice, my hands trembled slightly. The letter was professional, neutral, clean. 60 days to decide whether to remain under new management or vacate. No emotion, no history, just facts. My phone rang less than an hour later. Mom. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Hello? Her voice broke immediately. Ariana, honey, we got this letter. The house was sold. The new owners are raising the rent. We can't afford it. We might lose our home. The home I had kept from foreclosure. The home I had paid for. The home I had been told to get out of. I'm sorry to hear that, I said evenly. I'm sure you'll figure something out. There was a pause, then desperation. Could you help us? Maybe co-sign somewhere or help with a deposit? We're family. The audacity stunned me. I can't, I said. I'm focused on my own life now. But I have to go. I hung up and blocked the number again. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, they showed up at my door in Chicago. I didn't know how they found my address. I didn't ask. They stood there like strangers wearing familiar faces. My father looked smaller, older, his usual arrogance replaced by something close to fear. My mother clutched a manila envelope to her chest. Lily hung back, phone half hidden in her hand, probably recording. "We need to talk," Dad said. "No," I replied calmly. "We really don't." He swallowed. "Please." Against my better judgment, I stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind me. "We know things got heated," he began. "We were stressed. But family sticks together." I almost laughed. "Family?" I asked quietly. "Where was that belief when you removed me from your will 2 years ago while I was still paying your mortgage?" Their faces drained of color. "How did you—" Mom started. "You sent me the documents," I said, with Dad's note about how I couldn't be trusted with money. Lily scoffed. "You're being dramatic. We made a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated. 9 years of invisible labor wasn't a mistake. It was a system. Dad straightened. "You bought the building. This is revenge." "I bought an investment property," I replied. "The fact that you live there is incidental." Mom opened the envelope with shaking hands. "We fixed it. We're putting you back on everything. The will, the insurance. We want you to come home." I didn't touch the papers. "What do you want in return?" I asked. "We want our daughter back," she whispered. "The version who pays your bills?" I asked. "That's not fair," Lily snapped. "Fair?" I shook my head. "Fair was 9 years ago, when I was drowning, and none of you noticed." Dad exhaled sharply. "What do you want? Money? An apology?" "I want nothing," I said. "That's the point." I stepped back. "You can stay in the duplex if you want. Rent's market rate, due on the 1st. No discounts. You'll be tenants, nothing more." "And if we can't afford it?" Dad asked. "Then you'll do what millions of people do," I replied. "You'll figure it out." I opened my door. "I used to think family meant unconditional love," I said. "You taught me it actually meant unconditional expectation." Mom whispered my name. "I'm not your safety net anymore," I said. "I'm your landlord." I went inside and closed the door. They didn't stay. I heard later they moved in with Dad's sister in Grand Rapids, telling anyone who would listen about their ungrateful daughter. I kept the building, renovated both units, rented them to families who paid on time, and said thank you. Sometimes people ask if I miss them. I tell them the truth. I miss the family I thought I had, but I don't miss the one that taught me my worth by losing access to it. After they left my hallway that night, something inside me went quiet, not empty, not numb, resolved. I stood by the door for a long time, listening to the hum of the building, the distant traffic of Chicago nights, the ordinary sounds of a life that no longer revolved around crisis. For years, silence had terrified me. Silence meant something was about to go wrong. Silence meant I had missed a bill, a need, a demand. Now, silence meant freedom. Daniel came over later that evening. He didn't ask questions right away. He just wrapped his arms around me, grounding me in the present. "They came, didn't they?" he asked softly. I nodded. "And?" "They wanted me back," I said. "Not me, what I used to provide." He didn't look surprised. "And what did you do?" I said no. The word felt powerful, complete, final. For the first time, I didn't second guess it. Life didn't magically become perfect after that, but it became honest. The emails stopped, the calls disappeared, the guilt finally lost its voice. I focused on work, took on larger clients, earned promotions I'd once been too exhausted to chase. Daniel and I grew closer, not because we needed each other, but because we chose each other. He never treated my boundaries like obstacles. He treated them like proof that I knew who I was. Back in Detroit, the duplex changed. I finished the renovations, updated plumbing, replaced wiring, reinforced the foundation. I poured care into that building, the way I once poured it into people who never appreciated it. 2 families moved in, kind, respectful, grateful. They paid rent on time. They sent maintenance requests without apology or entitlement. They thanked me for responding quickly. Every month when the rent came in, I felt something close to peace, not because I was profiting, because I was finally being treated fairly. Through mutual friends, I heard fragments of my family's story. How my parents complained endlessly while living with my aunt in Grand Rapids. How my father blamed me for turning cold. How my mother cried about how family doesn't mean anything anymore. How Lily told people I'd changed, that success had made me cruel. I didn't correct the narrative. I didn't defend myself. For years, I had exhausted myself explaining my worth to people determined not to see it. I was done auditioning for love. One afternoon, months later, I received a final email from my mother. It slipped past my filter somehow. It was short. I don't recognize you anymore. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed my response. You never did. I didn't send it. On my birthday, Daniel surprised me with dinner overlooking the lake. As the sun dipped into the water, he raised his glass. To you, he said, for choosing yourself. I smiled. For years, I believed loyalty meant staying, no matter the cost. That love meant endurance. That family was something you earned by sacrificing yourself until there was nothing left. I was wrong. Family, real family, doesn't survive by draining one person dry. And love that requires you to disappear isn't love at all. I used to think being needed was the same as being valued. Now I know better. I am not a leech. I am not disposable. I am not a backup plan. I am a woman who learned, painfully, slowly, completely, that my worth was never tied to what I could give away. Walking away didn't make me heartless. It made me whole. And the life I built afterward, it was finally, undeniably mine.